Welcome to Wisdom for the Present, where we take ancient truth and bring it into clear, modern understanding. This episode uses AI-generated narration based on human-researched and written material.
Glad to be here for this one. It's a really fascinating text.
It really is. So I want you to imagine a world where a woman cries on this strict, scheduled, daily timetable for 7 years just to mourn her brother.
Right, like an appointment in her calendar.
Exactly. And meanwhile, you've got this wealthy, privileged aristocrat who just listens to sad, looping indie music until he literally physically throws up.
Yeah, it sounds like a bizarre piece of modern performance art, right?
Right. Or maybe, I don't know, a satire of influencers or something. But it's actually a 400-year-old masterclass on the dangers of lying to yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
We are diving into a text today that usually gets disguised as this fluffy romantic comedy, Twelfth Night, or what you will. Yeah. But beneath all the shipwrecks and the identical twins and the wacky disguises, there is this ruthless examination of human self-deception.
It really is ruthless when you get down to it.
So our goal in this deep dive is to act as your guides through the chaotic world of Illyria. And we want to extract the practical wisdom, the moral insight, and the profound life application hidden inside what looks like just a series of practical jokes. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's do it. It is brilliant how this text operates like a Trojan horse, honestly. I mean, we approach classical comedies expecting to be entertained, right?
Right, you expect the typical formula.
Exactly. Expecting this neat formula where a misunderstanding happens, a few people fall down, someone gets a pie in the face, and then everyone gets married. We really don't expect to have our own coping mechanisms and our own fragile egos put under a microscope.
No, definitely not.
But this author was an absolute master of using the ridiculous to highlight the deeply profound.
He really was. And right off the bat, we are confronted with the core wisdom of this entire narrative.
And it's a warning.
A huge warning.
Yeah, it's a massive flashing red light about a very specific, very dangerous human tendency, which is the illusion of performative identity.
Yes, the performative identity. The text is basically making the argument that human beings possess this terrifying vulnerability to falling in love with their own illusions. We curate a script for ourselves, like a vibe or an aesthetic, and then we just fall in love with that performance rather than engaging with reality.
Well, we build these elaborate, beautiful, emotional prisons, right? And then we just walk in and lock the door behind ourselves.
That's a great way to put it.
And the author wastes absolutely no time demonstrating this. I mean, in the very first scene, the very first lines, we meet Duke Orsino.
Duke Orsino.
He is the ruler of Illyria, and he is supposedly, hopelessly, desperately in love with a countess named Olivia. He is lounging in his court, he's surrounded by musicians, and he commands them, he says, "If music be the food of love, play on. Give me excess of it, that surfeiting, the appetite may sicken and so die."
Okay, I want to really sit with the physics of what he is saying there because it is wild.
It's totally wild.
He doesn't say, play music to soothe my broken heart. He essentially says, I want to gorge myself on this sad music. I want to overeat my own feelings of romance until I emotionally vomit and the appetite dies.
Yeah, he's treating love like a competitive eating contest.
Exactly. A hot dog eating contest for sadness.
Yeah.
He's not in love with a person. He is in love with the feeling of being a tragic, rejected lover.
Well, and the craziest part is the object of his affection, Olivia, she isn't even in the room.
Right. She's completely absent.
She is completely irrelevant to his emotional experience at that moment. What Orsino is experiencing isn't love, it's narcissism wearing a very expensive poetic disguise. He wants to make himself sick with his own feelings.
Yeah.
That is a man utterly consumed by his own internal weather, completely detached from the actual human being he claims to adore.
It's like his emotional state is a black hole. Like in physics, a black hole has an event horizon, and anything that crosses it just gets sucked in, crushed, and added to the mass of the black hole itself.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. Orsino's love operates exactly like that. It doesn't project outward to elevate Olivia. It just sucks everything into his own ego. And, we actually get text later that backs up this physics analogy.
Oh, yeah, the sea metaphor.
Yes. He literally compares his capacity for love to the sea, saying that no matter what enters it, it falls into abatement and low price even in a minute.
That is just a stunning piece of textual evidence. I mean, he openly admits that his desires swallow everything up and instantly devalue it. If you throw a diamond into the ocean doesn't become a diamond, you know?
Right, the ocean doesn't care.
The diamond is just lost in the vast, churning salt water. His feelings are an appetite. They're hungry, devouring, constantly needing to be fed with more music, more sighs, more aesthetic misery. It is a closed loop of self-indulgence.
But wait, stepping into the shoes of the listener for a second here, isn't there an argument that Orsino is just being a classic, passionate romantic?
I mean, you could try to make that argument.
Because when he talks about his desires pursuing him like fell and cruel hounds, that sounds like genuine, terrifying agony. Why is feeling your feelings so deeply and expressing them so poetically considered a bad thing here? Isn't passion the whole point of a romance?
So what's fascinating here is that tension is exactly where the author traps us. It sounds beautiful because the poetry is undeniably gorgeous.
It really is beautiful language.
Right, and we are conditioned to romanticize that kind of obsessive, all-consuming passion. We see it in movies all the time. But the wisdom of the text forces us to look at the result of that passion. True vulnerability, which is true love, as the text later defines it, requires stepping outside of your ego to engage with the messy, unpredictable reality of another person.
Yeah, reality is messy.
Orsino's passion doesn't lead to connection, it leads to total paralysis. He is entirely static.
Static, yes. And he isn't the only one stuck in that static gravity. The woman he's pining over, Countess Olivia, she's running the exact same software, just in a different emotional genre.
Very different genre, yeah.
Orsino is performing the tragic lover, and Olivia is performing the perfect mourner.
Yes. We learn about Olivia's state through Orsino's messenger. Olivia's brother has recently died, and let's be clear, that is a genuine devastating loss.
Of course.
But the text asks us to look at how she chooses to process it. She makes this vow to walk veiled like a cloistress, like a nun, and she is going to water her bedroom with tears every single day for 7 years.
7 years. It's a scheduled daily crying session. The text literally calls it eye-offending brine. She's treating her tears like a preservative, trying to season the dead love so it doesn't fade.
Like pickling your grief.
Exactly, pickling it. But grief doesn't work on a calendar invite. Real grief is jagged. It hits you in the grocery store, vanishes for a week, and then it knocks you over on a Tuesday. Olivia is trying to artificially control the uncontrollable by freezing herself in amber.
She's basically using her grief as a moat. If you declare yourself the most grieving person in the world and you lock yourself in a house with a 7-year mourning schedule, well, you never have to be vulnerable again.
You're safe.
Right. You're perfectly safe from life. You never have to risk a new relationship. You never have to face the complexities of leading her household or dealing with Orsino. It is a highly theatrical, entirely unsustainable performance that protects her ego from the unpredictable nature of living.
And then, completing this trifecta of self-deception, we have Malvolio.
Oh, Malvolio.
He is Olivia's steward, basically the head of her household staff. If Orsino is performing romantic melancholy and Olivia is performing pristine grief, Malvolio is performing pure, unadulterated superiority.
Pure arrogance. Malvolio is fascinating because his illusion is entirely built on ambition. He is a man who is utterly convinced of his own inherent greatness. He believes, as the text notes, that all that look on him love him.
Just zero self-awareness.
Zero. He performs the role of the strict, hyper-competent, morally upright Puritan, but it's a completely hollow performance.
There's that incredible line where Maria, who is Olivia's gentlewoman, she diagnoses Malvolio's psychology perfectly. She calls him an affectionate ass that cons state without book and utters it by great swarths.
Such a brutal takedown.
It's so good. I love that description. It basically means he memorizes smart-sounding political arguments and buzzwords and just recites them out loud to seem intelligent. He's an empty vessel stringing together jargon.
Yeah. He believes that if he just adopts the right posture, uses the right vocabulary, and scolds the right people, he can bypass genuine human connection and climb the social ladder. He is trapped in a performance of arrogance, completely blind to how ridiculous and despised he actually is by the people around him.
So if Orsino, Olivia, and Malvolio are all locked in these elaborate, self-imposed prisons of ego, we really have to look at the environment that allows this sickness to fester. Because you don't get this kind of mass delusion in a healthy society.
No, you don't. The setting is absolutely crucial to understanding the wisdom here. Illyria is not just a geographical location, it represents a specific psychological and societal state. The author has constructed a world of immense wealth, profound privilege, and total suffocating stagnation.
Yeah, the best way I can visualize Illyria is to think of an aristocratic terrarium where the lid hasn't been opened in years and the oxygen is just slowly running out.
That's a great image.
Or, think of a stagnant pond. When water just sits there with no fresh current moving through it, it gets covered in this thick, suffocating layer of algae. Nothing new can grow. Everyone in Illyria is isolated in their own little bubbles, just breathing their own emotional exhaust.
The terrarium analogy is perfect because it highlights the lack of kinetic energy. The society has ground to a complete halt. I mean, look at the behavior of the characters. Duke Orsino does literally nothing. At one point, his attendant asks if he wants to go hunt the hart, meaning the deer.
Right.
And Orsino refuses, choosing instead to make a sad pun about his own heart being hunted by his desires. He refuses to engage in any physical or outward action.
He's just lounging, and Olivia is locked inside her drawn curtains, refusing the sun entirely. But even the characters who seem like they're doing something, like the comic relief characters, Sir Toby Belch and Sir Andrew Eggcheek, they're actually trapped in their own form of paralysis too.
Yeah, Sir Toady is Olivia's uncle, and he has brought his foolish, wealthy friend Sir Andrew to the house. They spend all their time staying up late, drinking, and loudly singing catches. But if you look closely, their revelry isn't joyous at all.
It's kind of sad.
It's very sad. It is a desperate, decaying kind of stasis. So Toby is essentially acting as a parasite, draining Sir Andrew's bank account while stringing him along with false promises that Olivia might marry him. They are trapped in an endless, meaningless loop of late-night partying that achieves absolutely nothing but the erosion of their own lives.
It's a society playing pretend, avoiding reality at all costs.
Yeah.
And in physics, when you have a closed system with all this built-up stagnant potential energy, what you need is a massive kinetic impact to shatter the system.
Right, something has to break it.
And the author delivers that impact in the form of a literal shipwreck. Viola washes up on the coast of Illyria, soaking wet, grieving her twin brother Sebastian, who she genuinely believes has drowned, and she is stripped of all her protection. She is the rock thrown into the stagnant pond.
Viola's arrival introduces the harsh, undeniable reality of death and survival into a world that has only been playing at those concepts. Because she is acting out of true necessity, she demands reality.
She has no time for their games.
None at all. She realizes she cannot safely walk around this strange foreign land as an unprotected noblewoman, so she disguises herself as a young man, takes the name Cesario, and gets a job serving Duke Orsino.
Which introduces the greatest irony of the entire text,
Yeah.
which is that the only person wearing an actual physical mask is the only person acting with complete emotional authenticity.
It is a brilliant paradox. Orsino and Olivia are showing their true faces to the world, but their souls are heavily disguised in these performative roles. Viola puts a physical disguise over her face, but she operates with total integrity. She isn't performing a role to soothe her ego. She is performing a role to stay alive. And because she is grounded in reality, she becomes the mirror that reflects everyone else's absurdity right back at them.
When Orsino sends Viola, who is disguised as his new page boy Cesario, to go woo Olivia on his behalf, Viola refuses to play the polite, poetic games that Orsino's previous messengers played.
Right.
She shows up at Olivia's gate and basically says, "I'm not leaving until I speak to you."
She just bulldozes right through the protocol.
She totally disrupts the script.
Yeah.
And when she finally gets in front of Olivia, she tells her she is too proud. She demands that Olivia take off her mourning veil.
Yeah, Viola refuses to validate their illusions. And that disruption is the only thing that eventually starts to wake Illyria up.
So bringing this out of the 1600s and into the present moment, I really want you, the listener, to consider how this ancient Illyrian terrarium maps perfectly onto our 21st century lives. We might not be dukes and countesses lounging on velvet, but we absolutely live in modern Illyrius.
The translation to the modern day is almost uncomfortably seamless.
It really is.
We live in an era that completely prioritizes the projection of an image, the curation of a personal brand over actual lived reality. We have built digital Illyrius on our phones where we can broadcast our aesthetics without ever having to engage in genuine vulnerability.
Orsino is the ultimate historical poster child for what we now call main character syndrome.
Oh, he really is. Main character syndrome is that psychological framing where you view your own life as a cinematic experience and you are the star. Everyone else around you just exists as a supporting character, an extra, or a plot device designed to further your own emotional arc.
Just NPCs in his game.
Exactly. If Orsino were alive today, he would be curating a highly filtered, moody aesthetic. He'd be posting black and white photos of his coffee in his leather-bound journals, broadcasting vague, melancholic quotes to his followers, while completely ignoring the actual barista handing him the drink.
He's addicted to the aesthetic of deep emotion, rather than the hard work of deep relationship. And Olivia. Her modern translation is something we see constantly in online discourse, which is performative trauma and competitive outrage.
Olivia weaponizes her very real grief into an impenetrable brand. Today, we see people broadcasting their trauma, their anxieties, or their outrage as a way to build a shield. If you broadcast that you were constantly grieving or constantly overwhelmed or constantly offended, it acts as a preemptive defense mechanism.
Yeah, it keeps people away.
It says to the world, do not challenge me, do not ask anything of me because I am already at maximum capacity. It uses pain not as a bridge to connect with others who are suffering, but as a wall to keep reality out.
And then there's Malvolio. If Orsino is the aesthetic influencer and Olivia is the trauma brander, Malvolio is the toxic archetype of hustle culture.
Oh man, he's the original hustle bro.
He's the guy on professional networking sites writing 500-word essays about how waking up at 3 a.m., taking an ice bath, and skipping his grandmother's funeral proves he has a superior grind set to his coworkers.
The hustle culture translation is perfectly aligned with Malvolio's character. I mean, remember the quote about him memorizing political state arguments? He views every interaction purely as a transaction. He believes that if he just adopts the right life hacks, which in his case eventually becomes wearing a very specific, out-of-date fashion style of yellow stockings and cross-gartering, that he will magically bypass all social friction. Basically, yeah. He believes he is born great and just waiting for the world to realize it.
Okay, so if we recognize these archetypes in ourselves, and let's be real, we all have a little Orsino, Olivia, or Malvolio in us depending on the day.
Sure.
How do we catch ourselves? When we realize we are prioritizing our brand over our reality, how do we break out of the digital terrarium?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the text challenges us to ruthlessly examine the difference between our noise and our substance. There is a profound moment where Orsino is talking to Viola, who is still disguised as Cesario, about love. Orsino claims that men's love is grander, but he admits their fancies are giddy and unfirm, entirely driven by visuals and appetite.
It's loud, it's flashy, but it's ultimately hollow.
Exactly. And Viola, contrasting this, speaks about a hypothetical sister who is actually herself, and she describes a love that is totally unglamorous. She says she pined in thought, and with a green and yellow melancholy, she sat like patience on a monument, smiling at grief.
Patience on a monument. I love that phrasing so much. Think about a stone statue. It doesn't broadcast its feelings. It doesn't post updates. It just endures the weather. It is quiet, steadfast, and deeply rooted.
And the modern challenge is cultivating that quiet, unglamorous patience in a world that demands constant, loud performance. It is learning to strip away the curated aesthetic and simply be in reality, even when reality is painful, boring, or unnoticed. It's prioritizing deep, invisible integrity over visible, shallow aesthetics.
But if you were trapped in that cycle, if you were stuck in your own gravity, how do you even realize you're doing it? It is incredibly difficult to see your own blind spots. I mean, a modern therapist would take months to unpack the layers of Orsino's narcissism.
At least months, yeah.
But the author of this text uses a completely different, much faster mechanism to shatter these illusions. We have to look at the most unlikely source of wisdom in the entire story, which is Feste, the clown.
Feste is a fascinating figure. He is officially employed as Olivia's fool or jester. Society labels him as an idiot, but he is, without question, the most perceptive, intelligent, and grounded person in the entire landscape of Illyria.
It's playing on that classic historical trope, where the court jester is the only person in the kingdom who can tell the king he's acting like an idiot without getting executed.
Right, the fool's privilege.
But Feste isn't just telling jokes. He is actively performing psychological surgery on the people around him.
Feste explicitly tells us his methodology. He says, "Better a witty fool than a foolish wit." And later he tells Viola, "I am indeed not her fool, but her corrupter of words." I want to pause on that phrase, corrupter of words. In Illyria, words are already corrupt.
They're useless.
The nobles use grand, poetic, bloated language to build the lies they live inside. Feste's job is to take their pretentious language, twist it, break it down, and force the raw, unvarnished truth to spill out.
Let's break down exactly how he does this, because the logic he uses is devastatingly effective. Early in the narrative, he needs to prove to Olivia that her 7-year mourning performance is ridiculous. And he doesn't coddle her. He doesn't say, "Oh, I know you're hurting." He initiates a trap.
A brilliant trap.
He asks her why she's mourning.
And Olivia says she is mourning for her brother's death. Feste then asks where she thinks her brother's soul is. Olivia, being a devout woman, says his soul is in heaven, of course, and Feste immediately drops the hammer. He uses a flawless logical syllogism. He says, "The more fool, Madonna, to mourn for your brother's soul being in heaven. Take away the fool, gentlemen."
It is so brilliant. In 2 sentences, he completely dismantles the architecture of her ego. He points out the logical inconsistency, like, if you truly believe your brother is in paradise, your theatrical, agonizing despair on earth makes no sense. Therefore, your grief is not actually about his soul. Your grief is entirely about you. It is a performance.
Exactly. And Feste is the only character who can deliver this kind of blow. Why? Because he occupies a liminal space. He is the only character who moves freely back and forth between Orsino's musical palace and Olivia's mourning cloister. He is completely untethered by their delusions because he refuses to buy into their social currencies. He begs them for coins, yes, but he never begs for their approval or their validation.
Which gives us an incredibly potent, practical tool for our own lives. We call this practice Find Your Feste. If you want to avoid the massive self-deception we see in Illyria, you cannot rely entirely on your own self-awareness. You need a Feste in your life.
You really do.
You need a trusted friend, a mentor, or a therapist who is completely and utterly unimpressed by your title, your brand, your resume, or your follower count.
You need someone who has explicit, pre-granted permission to lovingly call you out when you are retreating into your illusions. You need someone who can look at your elaborate justifications for why you are avoiding reality and simply say, "The more fool, Madonna." Someone who just sees right through the smokescreens.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because Feste has this incredible line that really solidifies this. He tells someone, "I wear not motley in my brain." Motley is the multicolored patchwork uniform of a professional clown. He is essentially saying, I might be dressed like a joke on the outside, but my mind is crystal clear. I see exactly what is happening here.
He's the sharpest one in the room.
So I want to ask you, the listener, right now, who in your life wears the motley but speaks the truth? Who is the person you might occasionally dismiss because they don't have the right credentials or they aren't part of your industry, but who sees your true nature clearer than anyone else? And the harder question, when they try to tell you the truth, do you actually listen? Or do you dismiss them as a fool?
That is the most difficult step of all. Because as this text illustrates in brutal, unflinching detail, listening to the truth is an agonizing process. When our illusions are threatened, our egos do not surrender peacefully. They fight back, and they fight back with terrifying violence.
This brings us to the obstacles to growth. We modern listeners might resist this wisdom, just like the characters in the story resist it, because having your protective bubble pierced hurts. It feels like an existential threat.
It feels like death to the ego.
And when reality finally breaks through the illusions in Twelfth Night, the comedy suddenly drops away and things get very dark very fast.
The ego's violent resistance is profound. I mean, let's look at Orsino's climax. He has spent the entire narrative talking about how noble, deep, and pure his love for Olivia is. But at the end, he finally goes to her house. He realizes face to face that she absolutely does not love him. And worse, she appears to be in love with his servant, Cesario, who is Viola in disguise.
So how does the noble, poetic lover react to this reality? Does he gracefully accept her agency? Does he wish her well?
Not at all. His immediate reaction is murderous rage. He literally threatens to kill the person he claims to care about. He says, "Why should I not kill what I love?" He threatens to take Cesario and sacrifice the lamb that I do love to spite a raven's heart within a dove.
It's a terrifying pivot. The velvet-draped romantic turns into a potential murderer in seconds.
Because it exposes the narcissistic core of his illusion. When Orsino's fantasy of being the noble, melancholic lover is shattered by the reality of rejection, his ego cannot handle the injury.
No shatters.
Right. If he cannot possess the aesthetic fantasy, he will destroy the reality. He would rather kill an innocent person than sit with the discomfort of a bruised ego.
And we see an equally dark reaction from Malvolio. Malvolio's illusion is targeted by a prank. He gets tricked by a forged letter into thinking Countess Olivia is madly in love with him. He buys into it completely. He puts on the ridiculous yellow stockings. He smiles like a maniac. He makes an absolute fool of himself, acting out this grand fantasy of power and romance.
He really goes all in.
And when the illusion is finally shattered, when he realizes he has been played, His reaction isn't humility. He doesn't have a moment of self-awareness where he says, wow, my blinding arrogance really made me an easy target.
No. His final line in the entire text is pure, unadulterated venom. He screams, I'll be revenged on the whole pack of you. He leaves the stage entirely consumed by bitterness. His ego could not process the humiliation of the truth, and so instead of growing from it, his ego calcified into permanent hatred.
So, stepping in on behalf of the listener who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed by this, if reality is this painful, if waking up from your illusion makes you want to commit violence or seek revenge, why not just stay in the illusion?
It's a fair question.
Isn't ignorance bliss? Wouldn't Orsino be happier just lying on his couch listening to his music? And wouldn't Malvolio be happier just dreaming about being in Count? Why put yourself through the pain of popping the bubble?
That is the ultimate existential question, and the author anticipates it perfectly. To find the answer, we have to look at what is arguably the most profound, unsettling scene in the text. As part of the prank against Malvolio, the other characters lock him in a literal pitch-black room. Feste the clown dresses up as a priest named Sertopus and goes to the door to taunt him. Malvolio, sitting in total darkness, cries out, I am not mad, Sertopus. I say to you, this house is dark.
And Feste, playing the priest, replies with a line that hits like a freight train. He says, Madman thou errest, I say there is no darkness but ignorance.
No darkness but ignorance. It is the thesis statement of the entire narrative. Choosing to stay in the illusion is choosing to live in a dark, confined room. Yes, it feels safe. There are no surprises in the dark room of your own ego. You control the narrative entirely, but that safety comes at the cost of your humanity.
You're completely isolated.
Exactly. It makes you entirely disconnected from the vibrant, messy, unpredictable, beautiful reality of the world outside. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is blindness.
It reminds me of Plato's cave. If you choose the illusion, you are just staring at shadows on the wall, missing the actual sun outside. You miss out on actual, terrifying, thrilling human connection. You trade a real life, complete with real joy and real pain, for a fake, static life in a dark room.
But we cannot discuss Malvolio's dark room without stepping back and analyzing how he got there, because the methods used by the characters to break these illusions raise some very serious ethical questions. As modern listeners, navigating this part of the story requires deep discernment. We have to separate the truth of the message from the cruelty of the messengers.
We absolutely do, because the prank played on Malvolio starts out feeling incredibly justified, and then it spirals into something deeply uncomfortable.
It really gets out of hand.
Malvolio is a buzzkill. He comes down in the middle of the night and aggressively scolds Sir Toby and Sir Andrew for having a loud party. And Sir Toby delivers one of the most famous lines in literature, Dost thou think, because thou art virtuous, there shall be no more cakes and ale? It is a magnificent pushback against puritanical, self-righteous scolding.
In that specific moment, Sir Toby is acting as a necessary disruptor. He is rightfully pointing out the hypocrisy of Malvolio, trying to impose his rigid, joyless rules on everyone else's lives. If the conflict had stopped there, like a witty, verbal takedown, it would be a standard comedic comeuppance.
That doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't stop. Maria, Sir Toby, and the others construct an elaborate trap. They forge a letter in Olivia's handwriting, deliberately manipulating Malvolio's deepest insecurities and his highest ambitions. They convince him he is beloved by his employer, and when he acts on that forged letter, presenting himself in the bizarre yellow stockings and smiling inappropriately, Olivia thinks he has suffered a mental break.
And here's where it crosses the line from a prank into actual psychological torment.
Yeah.
Sir Toby and the others don't just laugh at him and reveal the joke. They use his bizarre behavior as an excuse to have him declared legally insane. They bind him, lock him in a pitch-black room, and then Feste masquerades as a priest to literally gaslight him. Feste tries to convince Malvolio that the dark room is actually full of bright windows and that Malvolio is possessed by a demon.
This raises an important question, right? It is mob mentality in action. What starts as a targeted, perhaps deserved critique of his arrogance rapidly escalates into bullying, torture, and the deliberate dismantling of a man's sanity.
So, as modern listeners, we have to pause and consider the morality of this. At what point does teaching someone a lesson or breaking their ego turn into pure malice? Where is the line between holding a necessary mirror up to someone's self-deception and just destroying their humanity for sport?
It is a critical distinction,
Yeah.
and it is important to realize that the author does not necessarily endorse this cruelty. We often assume that because it's a comedy, everything the good guys do is endorsed by the text. But the author leaves us with a profound sense of unease. Malvolio is a victim of abuse here. His unresolved, bitter exit is a dark, glaring stain on an otherwise happy matrimonial ending.
Yeah, there's no closure for him.
He doesn't get a redemption arc. He gets broken by the cruelty of others.
The play officially ends, the couples pair off, but Malvolio is still out there somewhere, traumatized and furious. It deeply complicates the neat little bow we expect from a comedy.
Which is exactly the point. The enduring wisdom here requires discernment. We must recognize that illusions need to be shattered, yes, but the way we shatter them matters immensely. We must dismantle our own egos and gently challenge the egos of our friends with the enduring, empathetic patience of a Viola. We cannot do it with the destructive, drunken, self-righteous malice of a Sir Toby. Truth delivered without empathy is just cruelty.
That is so true.
When we act as a Feste for the people we care about, the goal must always be liberation, never humiliation. If you break down someone's illusion just to laugh at the rubble, you have become far worse than the illusion itself.
Liberation, not humiliation. That is such a vital framework. And this lingering darkness, this sense that not everything gets fixed, that actions have permanent consequences, brings us to the final universal truth this text offers about the human experience.
To find this final insight, we have to look at the very last moments of the narrative. It is a masterful piece of comparative insight. Think about how a typical comedy is supposed to end. All the confusion is finally cleared up. Sebastian, Viola's lost twin brother, arrives. They recognize each other in this beautiful, miraculous scene. One face, one voice, one habit, and two persons.
The big reveal.
The couples are happily paired off. Duke Orsino realizes he actually loves Viola. Olivia is happy with Sebastian. Even Sir Toby marries Maria. It should end with a grand, sweeping speech about how wonderful love and marriage are and how everyone lives happily ever after.
Right, a freeze-frame high five as the credits roll.
Exactly. But it doesn't end that way. The nobles all leave the stage to go plan their weddings. The stage empties out entirely, leaving only one person, Feste the clown, standing alone, and he looks out at the audience and he sings a song.
And it is definitely not a happy, upbeat wedding anthem.
Not at all. The lyrics detail the chronological, inevitable journey of a human life. He starts as a little boy, where a foolish thing was but a toy. He grows into a man and faces thieves and finds the gates of the world shut against him. He gets married, but finds that by swaggering could he never thrive. He ages, he deals with drunken heads. It is a somber, realistic song about the harsh realities of aging, failure, and just enduring the grind of life.
Just the daily grind.
And the repeating refrain at the end of every single stanza is this haunting line with, "Hey ho, the wind and the rain. For the rain, it raineth every day."
For the rain, it raineth every day. It's such a melancholic, grounding way to end a story that was just moments ago, full of magical twin reunions and royal weddings.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of modern mindfulness practices or the core tenets of ancient Stoicism. It is the ultimate acceptance of reality over fantasy. It is telling us you cannot control the weather, whether that is the literal weather outside or the unpredictable emotional storms of life.
Precisely. The song serves as a bridge, connecting the ancient fictional text directly to our present reality. In the final verse, Feste sings, "But that's all one, our play is done." He breaks the fourth wall. He is telling the audience, the artificial world of Illyria, the magical resolutions, the perfectly matched couples, that was a play. That was a curated fantasy. But real life requires us to wake up and face the rain every single day.
Sometimes there will be joyous reunions, sure. Sometimes you find exactly what you were looking for, but sometimes there will be rain. Sometimes there will be Malvolios in your life who never forgive you, no matter how much you apologize. Sometimes there will be a deep, aching grief that you cannot just fix by wearing a veil and scheduling a cry.
Wisdom ultimately isn't about avoiding the rain. It isn't about trying to hide from the storm by building an echo chamber in Orsino's musical palace or locking yourself away in Olivia's cloister or wrapping yourself in the protective armor of Malvolio's arrogance. True wisdom is about stepping out of the dark room of ignorance.
Into the real world.
It is about walking out into the storm as your vulnerable, authentic self. It is accepting the wind and the rain as necessary, unavoidable parts of a fully lived life, not something to be managed or avoided through performative illusions.
It's about having the courage to stand in the downpour. So I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you step out of Illyria and back into your own life. In a world full of curated profiles, digital terrariums, forged letters, and clever disguises, what yellow stockings are you currently wearing just to seek approval? What performative illusion are you clinging to for safety? And what would happen if you finally took them off, stepped outside, and just let it rain?
Just let it rain.
That's the heart of this section. This is Wisdom for the Present, where understanding leads to clarity, and clarity shapes how we see and live. We'll see you in the next episode.